this. You're listening to me, Farzana Chaudry. Now, according to a survey conducted in 2020 by Sport England, 95% of black adults and 93% of Asian adults in England do not swim. Now, my next guest is the producer of the documentary films Blacks Can't Swim, as well as being the co-founder of the Black Swimming Association. He is on a personal mission to transform the narrative surrounding swimming in African, Caribbean and Asian communities. Now, I'm so thrilled that Ed Accura joins me live in the studio. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good. It's always lovely having live guests in the studio.
I know. I had the opportunity you gave me the opportunity to do it over the online or come over, and I said I'm definitely coming over.
Oh no, that's really nice of you.
Over.
Thank you. That's so important. Ed, the stats. Oh my goodness. They're really alarming. They're really alarming stats, aren't they?
Yes, 95% of black adults and 93% of Asian adults in England do not swim. And with children, I think it's 80% of black children and 78% of Asian children in England do not swim. And we have the highest drowning rate, said the World Health Organization. So it's not good news, I'm afraid.
The highest drowning rate as well.
The world, yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know what? Your passion from this stems from a tragic event in 2018, doesn't it? Tell me about that event that you were so moved by.
Actually, I couldn't swim. And my parents couldn't swim, and their parents before them couldn't swim. So swimming was never even part of my conversation. It wasn't. It was totally off the radar. My wife is Indian. She's Gujarati. She can swim. So when she was pregnant, she said, as soon as the child is born, I'm going to make sure it learns how to swim. And I said, okay, whatever. It didn't make any difference to me. But what changed me was that when she's now 13, when she got to the age of about 8 or 9, I read the story about a father who couldn't save his daughter when she fell in water because he couldn't swim. And then I said, if that ever happened to me, I would never forgive myself.
Wow.
And that started my journey.
Wow, something as just so powerful as that. Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, Ed, you did the trilogy, the series of kind of documentaries,
That's right,
Blacks Can't Swim. Tell me about the impact that those had.
When I made the first film documentary, which was basically run about my personal journey and things like that, and I had a few people from the Asian community, from the black community, talking about their personal stories as well. And it was supposed to be just a low-budget, short film to put on YouTube. But it's not until I put out the trailer and the response, I was like, wow, I never really expected that. And that's when I started my journey as to campaign within the community to get people to know more about water safety, drowning prevention and such. Yeah. And then as a result, I met a lovely lady who I interviewed by the name of, because I had a podcast called In the Deep End, and I met this lady by the name of Alice Deering.
Yeah.
And I found out that she was the only black swimmer in Team GB.
Wow.
So this was in 2019. So I met up with her. We had a chat, and then she introduced me to another lady by the name of Seren Jones, who was a journalist for the BBC. And then she introduced me to another lady by the name of Danielle. And so we got talking, 4 people from various different backgrounds, all doing the same thing. We were all advocating for water safety and swimming. So we got together and we said, let's start some kind of a campaign, some kind of a steering group. But then we noticed that the biggest problem was that there was no representation for Africans, Caribbeans and Asians. There was no representation. So when programs were being designed, policies were being put in place, there was no representation for us.
To actually push that policy forward.
That's why we set up the Black Swimming Association in 2020.
Got you. And that is so fundamental, isn't it? So fundamental, so important. Ed, just going back to what are some of the barriers, towards just not swimming in our culture and in our communities?
It depends on who you ask. You hear the usual ones like black women and their hair, Asians, ladies, and basically the faith, the modesty and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then you hear about one of my favorite, the heavy bones.
The heavy bones?
The black people, we can't float because we got heavy bones. But all of
I
these.
mean, we laugh, but I tell you, it's terrible, isn't it? It's so, yeah.
And then you also hear about things like, oh, my parents don't swim, so why should I? They say it's a white person's activity.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem is a silent one, which is most people that do not swim in our community it doesn't even feature in their, or shall I say, it's not even on their radar. So there's not even a reason why they don't swim. It just doesn't exist in their world. I used to be one of them,
Yeah.
And that is the biggest problem, because those are the most at risk.
So you learned to swim then, didn't you?
Only just a couple of years ago.
Brilliant.
But I'll tell you something, and I started saying this on radio quite a few times. Even though I've learned how to swim, it's still not. Every time when I go to the swimming pool, when I'm going on holiday, I have to mentally prepare myself to get ready for it.
That's really interesting.
I thought by now I'll be like, and people think, oh, Ed, you're always talking about swimming, so you must be in there like a fish. No. And it's because it was never part of me. It's still not.
You know what? I actually understand what you're saying as well, and it's probably going to take some time for it to just feel normal and kind of natural for you to want to kind of like dip your toes in there and go in there for a little swim. I remember growing up in the 1970s, and there used to be the public information films. Learn to swim, young man. Learn to swim. I don't know if you remember that, but that I was just when you were talking about that, I was suddenly transported to that, because that was such a seminal public information film. About learning to swim and the importance of kind of learning to swim.
There has to be more of that, and there's more of those, definitely.
Yeah. Do you know, I can swim, but not brilliantly well. So I passed the swimming exam in school, and there was a proper swimming exam that we had to have. Full disclosure here, I feel I need to confess this and say that I did actually cheat in the exam, because the teacher put her hand in the water and held up some digits. You had to open your eyes in the chlorinated water. Oh my God, I just couldn't do that. I just guessed, and I said 3, and it was 3 that she was holding up. That's how I passed. So I cheated in my exam. But I know what you say about it just not feeling natural. How do we keep the momentum going? Now, look, you want to tell me about this documentary that you want to create.
So I said to myself, I've been advocating for this water safety, talking about it, 3 film documentaries, all which I funded myself, the music, everything. And before we had the conversation, you talked about the statistics, the 95% and the 93%.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, it's been 5 years. What's changed? Is it working? Is what we're doing here, is it making any difference? So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a documentary of 2 halves. The first half is talking about everything that I have gone through between the last 5 years, sacrificing time with my family, my friends, just to do all because I have a day job. It's almost like I sleep about 3-4 hours a night, and that's at best, because I've got so much to do. So I said to myself, I need to understand where it's going. Am I doing? Is it working? So basically, what I plan on doing is the first half of the documentary is talking about everything that's happened in the last 5 years, the ups, the downs, the ins and outs, and all that kind of thing, and then we will present the statistics as it is now. Because I've been talking about 95%, has it changed? It's the last 5, we need to know. We need to know, is it working? Then we'll present the statistics, and then we'll have the community talking about what their personal thoughts on this and where we should go for the next 5 years, the guidance and the direction for the next 5 years. So that's what the documentary is about. But I wanted it to be a collaborative thing. So therefore, I started a crowdfunding. And so for the community and the sector to all get in, so we can all do this, because it's the journey for all of us. It's not just my journey; it's all our journey.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. And you're right. What has happened in the 5 years? You've got the brilliant. Thank you for the copy of the book. What has happened in those 5 years? Do you know if the stats have kind of decreased a little bit? You don't know yet.
I have no idea,
Okay.
and that's why it's so compelling that we have to understand. We need to know, because it's not only me. It's not only the Blacks Can Swim. It's not only the Black Swimming. So there's so many organizations out there, swim schools for this, swimming school for Asians, and so basically we are all doing a great thing. We're all momentum. There's so much momentum.
Yeah.
But we need to know where we are.
And that's it. It's about keeping the momentum going, isn't it, to get tangible change. I follow you on social media, and what's always wonderful is when you have change agents speaking about swimming, how it kind of changed their life, what they did, etc. That's a really important message as well, isn't it?
Very important. And Michael Wallace was supposed to be here with us today. He is my number one fan, and he helps me so much getting the word out there and getting people to talk about. It's almost, because I always say that everyone has a swim story. If you swim, you have a swim story. If you don't swim, why don't you swim? Everybody has a swim story. And the reason why I mentioned Michael, every person he meets, he asks, "What's your swim story?"
He asked me as well. He asked me when he rang me. He said, "Farzana, can you swim?"
Yeah.
Because it is important to know, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very, very, very important.
Yeah.
It's and so we just have to keep the conversation going. We need to keep on it. And the thing is that it's something that can save your life. It's the only sport that can save your life.
Exactly. So. I saw, because I went on the site for this, and the infographic for the projected kind of representation of Team GB. Tell me about that. That was a bit alarming.
So basically, it started with my nephew. I think Darren Kane's about 13, no 12. By the time he was about 9 or 10, and he's into football, very into football, and he's into rap, and he's into hip hop and all that kind of thing. And he went to school, and they were about to start swimming lessons, and he told his dad, "Dad, can you write me a note?" And that's why. He said, "Because I don't want to go swimming. They said we're going to start swimming. I don't want to go. So can you tell them that I can't do it? I shouldn't do it."
Wow.
And his dad, who's my younger brother, said, "What do you mean? Look what your uncle's doing. Your uncle's So the next time I saw him at my mum's, right? I said, Darren, what's this?
My hand.
What's this? And he goes, it's not for us. It's not for us. And I go, what do you mean it's not for us? He goes, it's white people. It's not black people. We don't,
Oh,
and I go, where did you hear that? So then he said something. He goes, they pulled up the picture of the national football team.
Yeah.
And because he goes, look at all these people. And he goes,
representation.
And he said, show me the swim. So I looked at it, right? And I already knew that there was only one black swimmer in Team GB, which is Alice Deering. But for some reason or the other, that day, she wasn't even in that picture. So it was
and you know what? I mean, that's... For him, it's representation, isn't it? And in a kid's eye, it is representation. That's so important. In terms of this documentary that you're making, does it also need a much larger audience? Look, we believe in projection over here. I'm thinking Netflix. I'm thinking a much wider audience.
Definitely. And that's why I said, I need the support. I'm going to make that documentary regardless of how much we make.
Yeah.
But the more money we make, the more impact it will be, and the much further the reach will be.
Yeah.
So but it's going to happen.
Yeah. That's so good.
It needs to happen.
So does your nephew? Did he learn how to swim? Does he?
He's
swimming?
having swimming lessons.
Oh, bless him. That's so good to know.
Yeah. And just to finish that story, the reason why I said Team GB swimming is unlikely to reflect the diversity of this country till 2052 is because there's only so much we are changing the narrative, but it's our children that are going to see the change, and their children. So it's going to be a generation. So they're going to see. They're watching what we are doing right now, and that is making. Because my daughter looks at me and looks at what I do and hears and that kind of thing, and that's what's going to change her.
Of course.
And that kind of thing. So it's going to take a generation for us to get where we need to get.
But we've got to start somewhere, haven't we?
Right,
we've got to, and I love your passion for it. It's so important. You said you started the crowd funder. How can listeners help? What can they do?
Just like I said, I don't care whether it's £5 or £1 or £100, whatever. It's just seeing the people support, putting the support behind it. That's the most important thing to me. So if you go onto my website, which is blackscanswim.com, or social media, if you go on Twitter, Accura, Facebook, Instagram, you see links to the to the crowdfunding. So
Brilliant.
and just make sure you leave a message as well, because I really love hearing the messages, see the messages and things like that.
That's so important. And you know what? I'm so pleased that you've come on, because this is such an important message. Like you said, it can save your life. It can save your life. Look, I'm going to finish off. You said this is so unfair of me. You said your wife is Gujarati. Do you speak any Gujarati at all?
That's about all I know.
Is that it? Do you know what I was just going to say? Can you say something romantic to her over the airwaves?
She doesn't teach me. I think I'm going to get my mother-in-law to teach me. My wife is not teaching me anything.
Oh, brilliant. Well, do tell her to tune in, because I'm sure she'll love the tracks.
One last thing.
Yes.
The Black Swimming Association was 4 years old on Saturday, so it's our birthday.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. You know what? Just keep doing what you're doing, Ed. And thank you so much for being so passionate about this, because it really can save people's lives. And it's so important.
Thank you very much.
You take care. Ed Accura there. Look, he's so passionate about all of us learning to swim, especially those of us, all of us. And if you are of a Black, if you're Afro-Caribbean background, if you're of an Asian background, ask the members in your family, can they swim? It's such an important question.
Get down.